So this is the Stories podcast. I'm joined today by Gary Ginnaw, who is the player manager at Charlton Invicta. Thanks very much for joining me. Really happy to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on, Kevin. It's good to catch up.
Yeah, for sure. Might be worth just talking about how we first met, actually. So it was at the Pride Parade about 2 or 3 years ago.
2018. Yeah. It was the first year that we'd entered a float in March, and we had about 80 or 90 people, I think, from memory.
Yeah, it's a really good turnout, and it was my first Pride as well that I've kind of been actively involved in. I've obviously been on the sidelines before, but it's the first time I got involved, and I heard just from a news feed that Charlton were going to be involved, and they were looking for some supporters, and I thought, wow, what an opportunity! And then that's how we kind of first met. So
yeah, definitely, it was actually the first one I'd ever taken part in as well. So
I've
been up watching in the past, but I've never sort of joined in, and it was actually something that we started planning the previous year, literally the week before Pride in 2017. And obviously it was too short notice then, but we just came up with this idea of getting the entire Charlton family together and celebrate Pride. But celebrate, Pride can mean many different things to many different people. But to just get, something that we'll probably go on to is that Charlton is such a family-orientated club, and the work that the community trust do in supporting local initiatives, it just made sense to just try and galvanise everybody to come together, celebrate Pride from an LGBT equality perspective, but also just being proud of being Charlton, and I think it was a roaring success.
No, for sure, and just as you're talking about that, it's like it gives me a bit of a warm feeling, because that is exactly what it was. It does give us pride, not just about the LGBT, but just the fact that Charlton does care about its community genuinely, and that the community trusts the work it does to support local people. Right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's obviously something that we're going to miss out on this year, but we've got plans. So there's always a plan.
Okay, I'll be nice to hear a little bit about that as well. So Charlton Invicta. Tell me about Charlton Invicta. Like, it's the official, if I could get this right, LGBTQI+. I don't know if I've said enough letters. It seems to add new letters every year. But LGBT friendly football team affiliated to the Charlton Athletic Community Trust. So tell me how that you came about that. What was the journey that led to that moment where you...
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's a long version and there's a short version. There's probably a short long version. I suppose
go back as early as you want to.
Yeah, to give some background. I mean, I'm an openly gay man, and I've always loved football. And I think sort of earliest memories that I have is, I remember. I think the first football kit my parents have got me was the England 1990 strip, and it's obviously quite synonymous in English football history, because it's the kit that Gaza cried in, and the Stuart Pearson, Chris Waddle missed penalties and losing to Germany and stuff. And
was that Italian 90?
Italian 90, yeah. I had that kit obviously the following sort of year at school, when we used to sort of do sort of some football training, and unfortunately I don't have photos, or we never had iPhones or anything like that back then. So I just remember, I was always this scrawny little kid, sparrow's legs, and running around in a kit on a muddy pitch, and not being good at football, but just enjoying it. And I've grew up watching football. I mean, being a Charlton supporter for the last 20 odd years, and season to get older from the late 90s. And I think my parents would tell you, most people, anyone that knew me growing up from sort of 11, 12, probably from like Euro 96 upwards until I was about 18, 19, I was out playing football every single day, every single evening. The summer holidays, you wouldn't see me. I'd be playing football for 8 or 9 hours, straight, and just couldn't get enough of it. And it was only when I really sort of, the sort of mid-teens, when you start to question yourself, and I knew I mean, I went to an all-boys school. I knew I was sort of different to a lot of my friends, and I struggled to come to terms with it, really. I think, you know, everyone has a different journey. And, you know, it's interesting, I've read some stories recently that, you know, really do resonate with my own story. And I just decided that I couldn't be who I wanted to be, or the person I am, and play football. It didn't seem to, the two didn't seem to tally up. And I don't think necessarily from any sort of discrimination. I just felt my own personal view that I hid it for a long time. I tried my best to hide it. Apparently I didn't do a very good job, because when I did come out, everyone was like, oh, we kind of knew, you know. Okay. And all these years of me, you know, trying to be quiet and yeah, sort of stand in the corner so to be unnoticed, I think is something I read recently, which really does sum it up. And you know, people don't notice you, and you know, girls won't notice me, and people won't try and get me girlfriends and put me in a position that I really didn't want to be in. And the same for sort of like from a football perspective, it's the changing room sort of banter, going to social events and stuff, and you know, if people start bringing girlfriends and then they start questioning, and I didn't want that at all. And so I just sort of, I suppose I filled my time with other sort of hobbies, and I got really into my running. I mean, I've run 11 marathons and half marathons, and it's something that I can do that no one's going to question my sexual orientation, you know. I think getting away from sort of team sports meant that, you know, I've always been a sort of active person, but I could still do something that I wanted to do. But I still had football, because I used to be watching every single week at the Valley. And, you know, when I'm there and I'm watching, you know, there's no stereotypes. No one's going to question, because you're there for sort of 90 minutes or 2 hours. You know, I'm not the stereotypical sort of gay, you know, if there is one. And so I still had football in my life, but just not from a playing aspect. And
the football is almost like a tribe or a family. I don't know if it feels like that to you. Just turning up on a Saturday to watch a game, you're part of this bigger family, this bigger community, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I used to go with my dad and my brother-in-law and his mum, like the four of us, you know, sat together, and we'd go to away games and, you know, long trips here, there, and everywhere. And but it was we were there for the football, so personal issues or personal life didn't come into it really, you know. And then it was only when I sort of really, I think I describe it as going through a bit of a midlife crisis when I was about 30, and I sort of I was in a point in my life where I didn't really see it going anywhere, to be honest, and I didn't really know what I wanted. And I made a number of big changes in my personal life, and obviously I came out when I was 24. And, you know, everyone's been really supportive. You know, I wish I'd done it years before then, because for a good sort of 3 or 4 years, I was in a position where I really wasn't happy, and I had no one to turn to. And I look back thinking, what an absolute fool, I should have come out years ago, you know, and because everyone's been fine, everyone's just treated me exactly as I am, because I'm the same person. And if anything, the relationship I've had with my dad over the last sort of 10 or 12 years has grown so much, because we can just be open with each other, and I'm not trying to hide who I am.
For sure.
You know, and the football relationship has obviously developed, you know, into something that is quite unique, you know. So I just sort of went through this point in my life where I'd gone through a number of sort of relationship changes, and I just felt that I needed to be more social. I'm quite an outgoing person, and I like to, you know, live life and enjoy myself. And I just felt that an opportunity to get back into football would not only give me something that I'm really passionate about, but it would help me to just grow my friendship networks. And I came across this team in Bexley. Obviously, I'm from Bexley. I've born up, you know, grown up there all my life, and I came across this team that was LGBT friendly, and I'd never come across anything like that before. And I just thought it ticked all the boxes. It was on my doorstep, and you know, I'm quite proud of where I'm from and my roots, and I just thought it made sense. And it actually took me about 12 months to pluck up the courage just to go along to a training session, because just didn't know what to expect. The ignorance in my own self, I just assumed it would all be gay guys. I didn't see why a straight person would want to be part of an LGBT friendly team. I didn't see that, and that's my own ignorance. And when I finally went along to the training sessions, I was surprised at the mix of people, and it was just a real sort of fun, friendly atmosphere. You know, everyone was very welcoming. And, you know, we had some really talented players. We had some less able players, but they were made to feel like they were part of the team and, you know, enjoy yourself and learn new skills. And it just sort of went from there, really. And, you know, the fact it's been about six or 7 years now, I've just never looked back, really.
Sure. I love what you're saying about it took you almost a year before you actually joined the football team because you was afraid to join a team for what it sounds like just for the gay guys. And when you found out that it was a mixed team, so that gave you it felt different because I get that. I really get that as well. Yeah. I really get a sense. I'm from Bexley myself, so I come from Bexley, same area. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the first things I remember from, I don't know if it was the first week of training or the following week, was because I think I went along and I hadn't played football for such a long time that everyone was like, when we had this little game, everyone was like, oh, you know, what position do you play? And I was like, well, I'm not really sure, to be honest, because I can't really remember. You know, I can do anything. I mean, I've not played for a long time and I'm probably going to be a bit rusty. And I just remember one of our strikers just absolutely levered this shot at goal and I just got in the way of it and it hit me dead smack in the face. And I had a nosebleed. And I just thought to myself, this is just so embarrassing, like first or second week of training and here I am with a bloody nose and, you know, but yeah, and I say it just sort of went from there and we had we had a lot of fun that first sort of season. We did well, we won a few games, we lost a few games and we had a good mix of a team and it culminated with a trip to Hamburg in the following summer for a European tournament. And
wow.
We had an absolute blast out there. Like we never went with any expectations, but we went to just enjoy it and, you know, lads on tour, I suppose you could say. But for most of us, we've never been in that situation before. And we had a few drinks and we had a few good nights out and we won a few games and lost a few games. But it just brought everybody together. And I think you could see that there was the nucleus at the club to achieve something. There was something there. There was some really talented footballers, and I just think it needed the right sort of steer into, you know, or someone to sort of guide it into something that it could possibly, you know, grow into something quite successful. And that summer, our chairman and our manager stepped down. Over the course of the summer, and the club was kind of it was quite a pivotal moment because there was a lot of players that had been around quite a few years because the team was initially set up in 2011, so this was sort of 2015, and it had a lot of new players that were coming in, and nobody really wanted to, I suppose, grab the club by the neck and drag it into, you know, I mean, you look to where it is now and you look back to where we was, you would have laughed back then to say where we are now. And I've always wanted to get into coaching. You know, I think that I was sort of 32 at the time and I was sort of thinking, well, where do I see myself when I stop playing? And I was just starting my FA Level 1 coaching badge just to try and get a steer into it and a bit of a feel for it. And I sort of threw my name in the hat and nobody else really did. And I didn't really want to stop playing, but at the same time, sometimes if there's an opportunity, you just have to take it. And so I took it, not really knowing what I was letting myself in for. Sure. And it's been up and down, I think, over the last 5 years. Yeah, I mean, I think when you win a game, it's great, but when you're losing a game, I always try and find the positives. And the first season, I think we lost like the first 11 games. And when you're losing every week, and we weren't just losing, we were getting hammered, and nobody really wants to turn up to games. Nobody was really turning up to training, and natural, any competitive environment, if you lose a game, naturally on a football pitch, if somebody says something to somebody, you're going to take it the wrong way. And everyone was sort of arguing, and the club was just, I wouldn't say it was falling apart, but it wasn't where I thought it should have been 6 months earlier, when after Hamburg, we looked like we had a core of a really good, or the making of a really good team. And I think we had about £8 or £9 in the bank. It was ridiculous. So we couldn't do anything, you know.
Yeah.
And something had to change, really. And, you know, it was Sam, my partner, that just sort of said to me, look, you know, why don't you, you know, you're passionate about it. Why don't you just talk to somebody at the Charlton Invicta Community Trust and just see what they can do. They might be able to help you out with coaching or anything. And I never really thought much would come of it, if I'm honest. And I've said that to people that I know at the Community Trust, you know, and I'm sort of blown away by the support that they've not only shown me, but the team. And
when was this? What year was this? Sorry.
So this was like the start of 2016.
Okay.
So we were bottom of the LUL. We hadn't won a game. I think we'd lost every game. And they were, I mean, you know, I don't know. They were probably looking at it thinking, you know, is this something that we really want to support? Because the team's obviously not very good. And but I always look at things and think, you know, if you're bottom of the league, there's only one way you can go, and that's up. And you know, so we still had that core of 8 or 9 players that were there that were the making of the team, and I was still adamant about that. And we just needed to bring in the right players. So it was very difficult to recruit players because, you know, and I'm quite open about it, from Bexley and South East London, there isn't a massive sort of gay demographic. There isn't a place that people go. It's not like we're in central London and you've got Soho and Clapham and all the bars. You know, we don't have that in South East London, and it's quite a, you know, something I said recently at an awards night is it's quite a difficult area. There's probably worse areas around the country and further out into Kent, but it's a difficult area to just be different. And you know, so we struggled to recruit players, and you know, we were I think at training we were probably averaging like 8 or 9 people a week, so you couldn't really do a lot. You didn't know who was going to turn up to a game on a Sunday, you know.
There's no squad rotation with 8 or 9 players.
Yeah, it was ridiculous sometimes. I mean, and you know, we were sort of asking mates to come along and help us out. But the good thing was is that some friends that did come along really bought into what the club was about and stayed for a couple of years and sort of helped us. And you know, and that was really good to see. And it was sort of straight allies that were supporting what we were about. And I think that sums up for me. That's the fundamental point. It's, you know, you can't just be a team exclusively for LGBT, because you're putting up a wall around yourself, and we're trying to break down barriers. So to have people that support me for being gay and they're straight but all we're there for is to play football. I think that speaks volumes, you know. And so I sent this really long email. I think I was off sick one day and I was laying on the sofa, and you know, sometimes you're in one of them moods. And I was like, I need to do something productive. So I wrote out this really long email, and then I sent it to Sam, and then I sent it to my dad and said, like, you know, does this sound okay? And Sam was just like, brilliant, just send it. And so I sent this email, and it took probably a few days. This was sort of like January, February 2016. And then I got this email back about setting up a meeting. And, you know, we went along and we had a little tour at the training ground. It was actually on my birthday in 2016. I had the day off work, so I booked it for then. And they were showing us all like the brand new artificial pitches that had just been finished. And someone just sort of said to me, like, look, you know, tell us what you need help with and give us a list, and we'll see where we can help. And I think they saw it, you know, as I say, the Community Trust has always done so much powerful stuff in the local community, and they've supported so many different initiatives that I think in football, this is, you know, obviously racism has been huge for the last 30 years, and obviously it's sort of reared its ugly head recently again. But, you know, there is no openly gay footballer in the Premier League or in the UK, and I think that was, for me, that is something that needs to be addressed. And the Community Trust and Charlton as a club have always been leaders and pioneers, and I think that for them, they saw this opportunity to not only address that issue, but to support the local community, and it directly impacts local people. And I think because I was a Charlton supporter and they could see the sort of passion and there's a background story as well. I think everything just sort of, it all sort of blended together. And so we actually launched, it was at the first ever Charlton v Homophobia tournament that following summer. So that's a tournament that's now been running for 5 years, which is fantastic to have a tournament at the Valley on the pitch with different teams and different sort of minority ethnics and groups coming together, but just supporting not only anti-homophobia, but just anti-discrimination across the board. Yeah. And at that event, I hadn't told any of our players beforehand. And at the end of it, I just announced that we were moving to the Charlton Athletic Training Ground in the following summer. I wanted people to take it seriously. I want to achieve something. It's not just all about winning, but I wanted to build this, I wouldn't say this empire, but I wanted to build something special that you could look back on in 4 or 5 or 10 years' time and say, do you know what, we did that, and we've got this to prove it, or this medal, or these photos, or these awards, or whatever it might be. But you can actually look back and be proud of making a difference.
Yeah, that must have been a massive draw as well for players to be able to train at Charlton's training ground where the first team is playing. And also, is this the first like top tier club, or one of the top tier clubs that are affiliated with a gay team? I don't know if that was the first time that happened as well.
Yeah, so when we had the first sort of year still being Bexley Invicta, and we were training, we had this sort of informal partnership, and we had a really successful sort of season as Invicta, and we finished 4th in the league, which for us was, amazing. I mean, we went on a run of, I think we won 7 or 8 consecutive games, and it was just absolutely unheard of, considering the year before. But with pretty much the same group, there was a couple of extra players, but the core was still the same people from the previous year. And that following summer in 2017, discussions took place, and it was, this is great, but can we make it better? What can we do? What else can we do? And the Charlton Athletic Community Trust Board of Trustees unanimously agreed to affiliate Invicta and just sort of bring us in line with all the community teams. And obviously we changed the name to Charlton Invicta, and the new kits and branding and everything. And it just meant that we were the first ever LGBT friendly football club that was formally affiliated to a professional club trust. And I think it's, when I talk about Charlton being pioneers, that's exactly what they're there for. They are there to lead the way, and it's no surprise to me that they wanted to support the cause and affiliate Invicta, because, as I say, they've always had this rich history of tackling any issues in society and any sort of discrimination and racism. And now the big topic was tackling homophobia in football, and to get them to support us and have a massive launch at the Valley with Lee Bowyer and Johnny Jackson supporting the cause, and a number of key stakeholders were there on the day within the sort of football industry, and also the Pride in Football and Football versus Homophobia and all sort of groups like that. They were all there to support us, and but we kind of knew that instantly we'd gone from here to here, and all of a sudden everyone was going to be like, we need to beat him. But it's great to be affiliated to the Community Trust and to be the first ones, and as you say, to train at the Charlton Training Ground with state-of-the-art facilities, meant that instantly not only could we use that to attract players, but I think for me, that first season, we never really had any stability. I think we played games at 4 or 5 different venues. Our training, because we weren't encouraging enough people to come along, we weren't making enough money out of it, and we were just about covering the cost. And so everything like that had to sort of change. And to have this home and this stability of, we're going to be training here every single week, we're going to be playing our games here every single week, people knew where we were going, what we were doing. And it just meant that the club could grow from just having a stable sort of ground, I suppose you could say.
Foundation,
yeah, foundation, exactly. That's exactly it. And we needed it. We definitely needed it, because I'm not saying that Invicta would have sort of folded, but who knows what would have happened, because we were in a make or break situation, and saying we didn't have the funds to really do anything, and we needed some support somehow. And I think we're up to sort of like 35, 36 members at the moment, and the club keeps growing, and it's grown over the last 3 years even more so. And that's because, like last season, we keep getting messages from people saying, and even Charlton fans, which I think is fantastic, and some are straight allies that have just sort of messaged saying, I've seen you at the Valley, or I've seen this on the Charlton website, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. Can I come along to training? And some people say, look, I'm not gay, but I get what it's about, and I just want to come along in an environment where I can be accepted. They might be shy, they might have sort of social interaction issues or anything like that, and I think that's really, really powerful, and it's about positively impacting that local community.
Yeah, and you said acceptance, right? Acceptance is massive, and that was a massive part of my journey, come to terms with being gay as well. It's just being able to accept myself as a gay man. I guess it's the same with everything, with all kinds of discrimination. Talk the other week about someone else have come to terms with their blackness and accepting their own blackness, and that sounds ridiculous as well, right? But
that's the thing. Everyone's different, and I say this to our team all the time. Every single one of us, you go through. We've got our sort of WhatsApp group, which you can imagine over the last sort of 12 weeks has been quite active.
Sure.
But every single one of us is completely different to the next person, but we're all together as a football family because we support everybody. We play football together, and that's what it's about. And it's something that I've really tried to harness, is this sort of family atmosphere. And even for like games, it's not like we have a massive following or a big crowd down there watching us, but I've tried to encourage people to bring friends and family and girlfriends, boyfriends, children to come along. And sometimes I think we probably average about 10 or 15 people watching at a game. Sometimes we have sort of 30 people, but it makes a massive difference having somebody there than standing in a park that's muddy with like 1 or 2 people watching. It's no fun, and so we've tried to use what we have to offer people. It's really good facilities down there, and there's some seating available, which you don't get if you're playing in Hackney Marshes or somewhere. And it just means that if you've got a straight guy that's joined the team and he brings his parents or his girlfriend and they're watching this team, it impacts them as well, and then they can go and talk to their friends and their family, and it impacts them. And they're talking about this LGBT inclusive football team that a few years ago might not have existed.
Yeah, sure. I was going to ask you, and I think you've already touched upon it already. It's like, what do you stand for as a team, as a football club? What are your kind of core values? Difficult question.
We've always tried to. It's the difficult thing is being competitive and still trying to be inclusive. Like, it's a real fine balance, and
sure.
Naturally, most people have a competitive streak. Some obviously a bit more competitive than others, but when you step out on a football pitch, you don't step out to lose. Nobody wants to lose, but it's at the same time, it's not all about winning. And we've tried to. It is really hard, but we've tried to keep to the core principles that the club's open to all, regardless of ability and sexual orientation. And we just try and encourage people to come along and enjoy it. But you have to understand the philosophy of the club and what it's about. And if you can understand that and encourage people to develop their skills and get better. And we've had some players that joined that, haven't played football for a long time, and I've seen them grow not only as individuals over the last few years, but within the group of, it's quite a large sort of group that we've got, and people making friendships that they probably would never have made had it not been for being part of Invicta. And I think it's quite important to sort of stick with that history. But naturally, we are a football team as well, and we want to be successful.
It's a really difficult balance, right?
Yeah.
You want to be winning games, you want to be successful, but you don't want to exclude people. I guess that's the job of any manager as well, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Keep everyone happy.
It's a nightmare. to try and keep everyone, it's one thing that I've learned over the 5 years is trying to keep everyone happy is not impossible.
Sure, sure.
I try my best, but you know what? I think like we'd love to get to a position where we could have 2 teams, and I don't think we're that far away from that, if I'm honest. But it's then how do we have 2 teams? Do we have a first team and everybody else, or and that's something that we'd have to agree on. But I think we're definitely growing numbers, and that's another opportunity to be able to give more people the chance of playing football. And you know, like we had a really good season, obviously, when we first affiliated to the trust, and we won the LUL, and you know, we were the best team by far that season. You know, we played some really, really good attacking football. We had a good defence to us, and but it was pretty much a sort of 15 or 16 group that were available every single week that were playing games, and it was very, very difficult for people to get into the team because the core of the team was at training every single week, we're playing well every week, we're winning games every week, and I think it was difficult for people that were on the outside of that group to really try and break in because they didn't really have an opportunity. And the following season, we had a few people leave over the summer, and that summer of 2018, we just sort of looked at ourselves and thought, you know what, we need to just not so much encourage more people to get involved, but we need to give more people a chance to play football. And so we set up a number of sort of friendlies during the year where there was no expectation. You know, you could come along and play in a friendly without, you know, make mistakes, whatever it might be, get some experience. And because we'd lost the core of the team, we had to obviously grow and bring new numbers into the team. And I think the first training session, we was a little bit worried as to what numbers were going to be like. And this was just after Pride, that first Pride in London March. And I think we had like 22 turn up at training, which we were just blown away by new people wanting to come along. And it took us a long while to get the team to settle down again. And we actually went on our longest winless run.
Okay.
Which was really difficult for the people that were still at the team that had won the league before, the season before, because we were used to winning games, and now all of a sudden we were losing games. And to see the way the team has come over the last 2 years, and you know, last season we were winning friendly games, and I think we were winning friendly games because there was no pressure. But when it came to the league, we were making individual mistakes and we were getting punished. And I think we never lost. I think we lost 7 games by 1 goal, and that was a real fine margin. And I kept saying to people, look, you know, we'll go for it once we do start winning. Imagine how it's going to feel, because we're losing games every week and we're still going out as a team and celebrating. So imagine what it's going to be like when we actually win. And
sure.
we finished the season bottom of the league again, and it was a shame, obviously. But you know what? It meant that people were being given a chance. And I actually said, I think the last game of the season we played away to Soho, we just lost 4-0, and I think that was probably our worst result of the season, which wasn't terrible. And they were the top of the league, and we were just about to win the league. And we had a bit of a team talk out on the pitch, and I remember it raining. We were at Hackney Marshes of all places, and it's raining and it's muddy, and we've just lost. And I just said to them all that, you know what, I've actually probably had the most enjoyable season ever. Because we've gone here, there and everywhere, and we've just had a laugh, and there's been no pressure. But obviously I don't want us to finish bottom next season, so we're going to have to up our game a bit. But it just made sense that we just enjoyed ourselves, and I wanted everyone to know that. And we went to Rome in the Euro Games in July, and people, because it was quite an expensive trip, and a lot of people were struggling to take time off and to be able to justify the cost. And we only took 12 of our own players, and we had 2 players that joined us out there that had just signed up as individuals. And a guy called Claudio, an Italian, and Ryan, a French guy. And so we had the 14 of us. It was probably the smallest squad out there. And we went with no expectations. It was, do you know what, let's enjoy it. It's 30 odd degrees. It's going to be really difficult. But let's use it as a sort of team bonding sort of 3 or 4 days, and get some fitness in ahead of the new season, and try and make everybody back home proud. And that was as simple as that. And we won the first 2 games in the group, which was a complete shock to us because we weren't used to winning games. And we lost the next 2, but we finished 3rd out of the group, and it meant we'd qualified for the semi-finals. So they split the groups into like a Division 1 and a Division 2. So we qualified for the semi-finals of Division 2, and it meant that we had a chance of winning a medal. And for me, knowing that we came with no expectations, that was amazing. And so I kept trying to give everyone the incentive that, imagine how everybody back home is going to feel. The ones that couldn't make the trip, or the ones that weren't, I wouldn't say they weren't that concerned about going, but if I was sitting at home and I'd seen the team that just won a medal in Rome, I would be so disappointed that I wasn't there. And the semi-final, we turned up on the Saturday morning to play the semi-final against I think they were the Italian LGBT team. So we thought it was going to be quite a difficult game. So there we were out on the pitch, and we warmed up, and everyone was fresh and stuff. And they decided not to turn up.
Wow. So you got a bio.
Yeah. We had to wait around for a bit, and then the referees just called it, and obviously gave us a bye to the final. And who knows what would have happened if we played the game. But do you know what? I just said to everybody, enjoy it, because maybe we deserved a little bit of good fortune because we'd had a quite a difficult sort of 12 months. But that meant that we were guaranteed either gold or silver, and this was just incredible. So we ended up losing the final, unfortunately. We lost 3-2 to the team from Madrid, but it was a really, really difficult game, and we just lacked numbers, really, because we had a couple of injuries during the game, and I think that it's taken its toll of playing sort of 3 days with such a small squad. But to lose it like that so narrowly, I mean, we came away with a silver medal, and you can imagine the pride back home to have finished runners-up in a tournament, and then it just sparked this interest from everybody saying, I need to make sure I'm at the next one, And unfortunately, this year's been cancelled because of COVID-19, but we'll be in Copenhagen hopefully next year for the next one.
Cool. How have you found that, like, coping with the whole COVID, and like as a team of individuals? Like, from what you're saying, it's a family as much as anything in the community, and when that's kind of taken away, it's like a big support network that's kind of gone.
Yeah, definitely. It's I think it's been quite difficult. I mean, I've had ups and downs, even myself, and I suppose I'm quite fortunate that, I live with my partner, and, me and Sam sort of keep each other sane, I suppose. We drive each other up the wall as well, but...
yeah, and I think everyone's had ups and downs, right? I mean, it's just the nature of the beast, like, nobody can... Yeah.
And I think for some people, when they come to training every week, or they come to a game, I think it's their opportunity to just release. It's a get out from everything that goes on from every day at work or in life. And I think to not have that place to sort of let some steam off, I think has been quite difficult. And it's 13 weeks tomorrow since we last played, and 14 weeks since we last trained. And I don't think any of us really expected. I mean, it's longer than the usual sort of summer break that we have. So I don't think any of us really expected it. And I know some people have struggled more than others, and we've tried to keep people engaged, and we've had different things going on, but it's quite difficult. And but it's the sort of thing, no one's trying to keep me sort of perked up and happy. It's me trying to do it to other people. So sometimes, if I have a down day, then but hopefully, touch wood, we're on the way out of it, and we might be able to. But we are going to try and get back to some sort of social distance training in line with guidelines, just to give people the opportunity to get out and exercise and see people in small groups. And I think that will do wonders for a lot of people.
Sure.
I mean,
exercise is so important, right? For everyone.
Definitely. I mean, we set up a 5K challenge that I think we had about 16 or 17 of the team that got involved in that, which was really good to see. And we managed to raise, close to £1,200 for Lewisham and Greenwich NHS Trust. So we just wanted to try and do something, use our time to try and make a contribution to the cause. And, I think a lot of people were quite proud of being part of that.
Absolutely.
But we just can't wait to get back to playing football. I mean, it sounds quite cliche, but you know, it is our life for most of us. And as you say, we're such a big family that you know, we see each other so much, and to not see each other, I think is obviously is quite difficult, really. And we've had a really successful season. I mean, obviously after last season, we started the season. I mean, we lost our first 4 games, but we had a few new players that came in, and from October onwards, we've had such a great run. It's the first season that we entered a different league as well, so we had 2 leagues running. We had the LUL, the London Unity League, but we also entered the GFSN, which is the Gay Football Supporters Network, which is a national league. And it was just so we could offer something different to people. And we knew there would be some long distance trips because it's pretty much all over the UK. And we had a game in Liverpool, we had a game in Edinburgh, and we've had some new teams that have sort of come down to Sparrows Lane that we've never played against before. And so it's been a really good opportunity to get out there and meet new teams and new players. We've actually done really well. I mean, we won up in Edinburgh. We only took 10 players and we won the game. We won up in Liverpool. We actually had an injury time penalty to win the game, which
wow.
You're going to win it like that. I mean, that's just great. And then to have a night out as well as a team away is, you know, it is so much for the bonding of the group. And we played obviously 13 weeks ago, and we were still due to have more games left. And I think that's one of the disappointing, I suppose you could say, but you know, it's football at the end of the day. I mean, you know, I keep saying to people, if we come through it at the other end and we're all still here, then we should count ourselves lucky, really. You know.
Yeah, something to celebrate, right? Yeah. What do you make about the wider issue of like being gay and a footballer, like in the Premiership, for example? How long do you think it'll be before we see a Premiership team player actually coming out? And I know there's been a movement just over the last couple of years or so around that.
Yeah, I think you know, I think it's role models is the important thing. I mean, you know, I can only think back to my own sort of story, and you know, sort of growing up when I was sort of 14 and 15, and there wasn't really anybody that you could aspire to. And you know, footballers are role models, and I know if somebody quite high profile came out, I can imagine what it would do for somebody that was sitting at home watching this icon. You know, I'm thinking, do you know what, if he can do that, then I can. And you know, I remember, I think I was 15 when Justin Fashanu obviously tragically killed himself, and I remember seeing it all over the papers, and I did actually, I said it on a podcast a few months ago that I don't talk about it often, but it just something sort of flagged up in my head, and I just remember, I think it was actually in Lanzarote at the time. I was on holiday and I saw it all over the papers, and I just thought to myself, if this person can't be openly gay and be a footballer, what chance have I got? And you see, you know, and obviously there was a number of factors involved, but I just think that from experience that I've had within professional football with Charlton and the Community Trust, and I can see, you know, we've had discussions with Lee Bowyer, and you know, Lee's just, the support is just amazing. You know, he's such a down-to-earth person, and all he wants is his players to support each other and play football. And I think you can see that from the way the team's been. And and I think within football itself, or within the clubs, I don't see there being an issue. I think people would support. You know, it doesn't matter if you're gay or straight or whatever, as long as you're going to do what the manager wants, and you're going to play how he wants you to play, and you're going to support your teammates. I think everyone would accept that. I think it's just the fans that is where the issue lies, and that's and that you know, football supporters will say things at a game regardless of your sexual orientation. They'll say things at any time. You know, and I remember being just shortly after the 2006 World Cup when Cristiano Ronaldo famously winked at Rooney after he got him sent off, and I think his first away game afterwards was actually at the Valley, and I think pretty much for 90 minutes the Charlton fans gave him so much abuse every time he had the ball, but all he did was he let his football do the talking, and he scored this absolute worldie at the Valley and just silenced everybody. And you know, footballers just have to let their football do the talking. I know they are in the public spotlight, and everyone's going to want to know about their personal life, because that's just the nature of the world we live in with social media. And footballers are sort of up here on a pedestal, and they're all over these computer games and FIFA and everything, and obviously they have these big salaries that everybody wants to talk about. But I just think that even if you did come out, if you let your football do the talking, your team will still support you, your country will still support you. And I always sort of think back to David Beckham after the '98 World Cup. He went from being England's probably most hated person to probably the idol of the nation, just by letting his football do the talking, and obviously scoring these free kicks that the goal that got us to the World Cup against Greece. And now he's arguably, people probably don't even remember him getting sent off against Argentina. And I think that's what a footballer has to do. Yes, no one should be forced to come out, and I think it's a decision if you choose to.
No, same for all of
but I think if you do, I think within football it's accepting. I think it's just the wider sort of supporters. But I just think it would be a massive, you'd be a massive role model for so many people. And I think young LGBT people need role models, and young LGBT footballers need role models. And that's what I think. I mean, whether it's going to happen, who knows? And but I think we're at a time where we probably need somebody to I mean, I've had debates with Sam. Sam said if it was him, he would never do it. But I think I'm at a point in my life where I would just like, what? If I was fortunate enough to be, a professional footballer, I think I'd just put myself out there and accept it or deal with it, sort of attitude. And who knows what would happen? I mean, everyone's different, but I think we're in that position where we probably need somebody to be brave enough to become that idol, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. And it happened in other sports, right? We have, I can't remember the guy's name in rugby, and athletes have done it. I don't know if it's the tribalism of football or the working class roots, but there's something about the tribalism that makes football that attractive as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, football just seems to be unlike anything else. I mean, Sam talks quite passionately about, this is their workplace. This is a footballer's work environment, and the abuse that footballers get is absolutely disgusting. And you would not get the same sort of abuse in any other work environment. And so I think it is, I think clubs and the leagues and all the governing bodies, UEFA and FIFA, have a job to do to try and eradicate that abuse. And I don't know how we do it. But it's also educating at a young age as well. Grassroots football can have a massive impact, and I think that's, it is twofold. It's from the top down, using their power to if they have to sanction teams, or they do it for other aspects. And I think this is probably something that they need to do as well. And then it's from county FAs and grassroots clubs educating at a young age.
Sure. No, it's really inspiring to hear that, and I'm sure that it won't be too long before somebody does find the courage, and it's the new kind of David Beckham or whoever it is, just to kind of break the mold, and it can shift everything, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think education has a lot to play, and I think we've done it as a wider community. I think a lot's been done over the last. I've seen it over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, and for instance, say that some of the allies that have come into our team that have probably beforehand never met an openly gay person that was a footballer, or just never really understood certain aspects of what people go through, and the impact it's made on them as individuals. I mean, like my dad, I mentioned earlier, like he's our chairman now as Invicta, and he has been for
okay.
To have a straight ally that's also a father, that's sort of 64, and he's from a different generation, that's the chair of an LGBT friendly team. I think that sends a real positive message, and he's learned an awful lot over the last few years, and we've got 3 transgender players that are part of the team now, and to have them interacting, or to have straight guys sort of interacting and understanding the issues that they go through. you know, is again, there's all this education, and sometimes if you don't know something, it's okay to ask, and that's how you learn something. It's, you know, it's all right if you don't know the answer to it, or you didn't understand this. And we have these sort of, I wouldn't say debates, but we have these sort of chats on our players group quite often. You know, one of the guys might message saying, I saw this and I don't understand what it means. Then we have this conversation, but that's the way you educate people. That's the way you learn things. And, you know, we've been quite interactive with the Charlton Invicta Community Trust Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Department. Dr. Michael Siraj, they've actually just launched some new online webinars, sort of obviously during the current sort of climate, just to talk about some key issues in football. And we're actually going to go on there for the first one and talk about Invicta and how we've sort of got involved with the community trust and the impact of having an LGBT friendly team. And we're going to look at it from sort of supporter aspects and the AME issues and just a load of sort of different factors. But it's by having people that understand issues talking about it and having a personal story. That's the way we get this education around to so many different people.
Sure, and just giving people that exposure as well. That, like you say, that exposure to it helps to break down those barriers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
normalise it.
Yeah. I think sometimes you have to have people that are people that are directly impacted by something talking about an issue. Means people understand more. I can't talk about certain issues because I don't really know much about them. It's better to have somebody that's directly impacted. And I think to get people out there talking about things is, you know, and having a story that people can relate to. And as I mentioned to you earlier, you know, I've read some stories the last few days from different people, and it's sort of flagged something up in my head, thinking, actually, that's how I felt, you know, and that's a really good way of describing it. And sometimes you think you're on your own, but when you read someone else's story or you hear somebody talking about something, just you know, it makes you feel like they actually, you know, it's, you know, or you might even just
not just me,
yeah. You know, I think it's really, really powerful. And the most powerful thing we can do is just talk and speak our mind, and you know.
Sure. And you won some awards just recently as well, with Invicta, right?
Yeah. So we
talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so the Football versus Homophobia campaign, which had its 11th year this year, so it's been going for a long time now, and it's been a campaign that I've really felt passionately about since I got into football with Invicta, and we've always supported the campaign each year. So they have a dedicated month of action, which is February, which is LGBT History Month, and so the campaign runs by just getting professional clubs and grassroots clubs to just get involved in the campaign by hosting a game or a tournament that's dedicated to football versus homophobia, and to get loads of sort of social media and coverage around that. And we've done a number of exciting things through the years. You know, we had our training session with Lee Bowyer and Johnny Jackson at the training ground a few years ago, which was for football versus homophobia. We had friendlies against Kent FA and stuff like that. So we've done a lot, but it's just being active and putting ourselves out there. But not only do we support the campaign, but we understand what it's about, and we try and mirror ourselves on that we are a team that's football for everyone, which is the Football v Homophobia sort of slogan. And this year they decided to host their first ever award ceremony, and we were nominated under the grassroots category. The club, Charlton Invicta, were also nominated under the professional club category as well for the work that they do to support the campaign. And we went up to an awards night at Charlton FC, which was quite cool. And we were nominated Grassroots Club of the Year, which was fantastic, really. And you know, I did mention at the time that when we won the award, that, you know, coming from Charlton and that sort of area, it's quite difficult. I mentioned earlier about being different, and there are other parts of the country where it's a bit more accepting, and there are probably parts of the country that are less accepting. But speaking of sort of South East London and Kent, you know, it's not the easiest place to be growing up and being openly gay. So to sort of put ourselves out there, I think is quite powerful, and to win the award was fantastic, and it was a sort of a way of sort of thanking us for all the hard work we've done over the years. And you know, but it doesn't mean we're going to stop. We're going to keep doing what we do, and hopefully keep making a difference to people, because that's what it's about.
For sure, and well deserved. Oh wow, you got yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's right on the desk. So
pride of place.
Yeah. But it's like what I mentioned earlier. If you can look back on yourself, whether it's me or the team or the club or anyone, in 5 years or 10 years' time, and say, do you know what, we actually made a positive impact to different people. I think that's what it's all about. And I touched on earlier about sort of having a few transgender players, and Naomi joined in February 2019, and she was our first ever transgender player. And what an absolutely amazing player she is. She actually lives about a 5-minute walk from the Valley, and that's how she heard of the team. And she's a Leeds fan, so she's not a Charlton supporter, but she heard of it through being in the local area, and she joined the team. And she's such a positive influence on everybody that other players have joined because they've seen her as a role model and the way she's been accepted within Invicta, and that's just incredible. It really is, and it makes me really proud of what we've achieved.
For sure, and that's quite a hot topic at the moment. J.K. Rowling has got herself a lot of headlines recently about it. So
I sometimes wonder why. Sometimes sometimes I wonder what goes through people's heads. Sometimes just don't say anything, and put themselves in. They put their foot in it, and I guess sort of get too involved in it. But sometimes you just need to take a step back and think: is what I'm going to say going to offend people? And if it is, even if it's only going to offend one person, then maybe don't say it.
For sure.
But we're all human and we all make mistakes. But when you're a figure like that, it's going to be picked on even more so.
No, for sure. I wonder if we could finish with just some quick fire questions, just to find out a little bit about Gary the person.
Yeah, sure.
So what's something people often get wrong about you?
That's a good question. What do people often get wrong about? I think people often don't know quite how good a footballer I am until they see me play. I think sometimes people think that I'm too easygoing as well.
Okay.
And I'll let a lot slide, but sometimes if I think there's something I don't agree with, I'll let people know.
Sure. What's the most memorable game that you've watched? Might be or experience. Might be a game you played in, or as a supporter.
Yeah, I think watching. I think I would do every Charlton fan a disservice if I didn't say the 1998 playoff final against Sunderland, because I think that game had pretty much everything. And I was only 15, and obviously fortunate enough to be there. But to draw 4-4 at Wembley after extra time and win on penalties, and the way the game just went back and forth, and I dare say it's the greatest playoff final ever. So that has to be the best game I've ever watched. It just has to be. I mean, this year's playoff final was good, and it was great to win in the last minute, but it just never had the same sort of special feel as 98 did.
Sure. Thanks so much for joining me. Like the work you're doing is, it's truly amazing, and you should be really proud for everything you've achieved. Right?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. And I think it's really cool to be able to impact local communities and professional football within the club and the trust as well, which I think is really powerful. And hopefully, all Charlton fans will support us, because there'll be a day when we're walking around the pitch with a league championship soon, no doubt.
Yeah, let's hope so. And how